So to start with, I had 5 horseshoes which I started by cleaning using a wire brush and then also using a wire brush wheel which was on my drill, and that just gets rid of all the muck and rubbish on the used horseshoes, and it also helps to get the surface rust off as well. If there's any bits that are stuck in any of the little holes, I find just a little screw or a little nail, if you just get that in, and that'll normally pick out anything that shouldn't be there. So with the horseshoes now clean, we're going to take one of the horseshoes, which is going to be our tail, and we're just going to mark on it because we're going to cut that in half. So I'm just putting a white mark on because that's where I want to cut it for the tail. So this is the 2 legs and the tail over here, and then this is going to be our head and our ears. So all I do with this is look at where I kind of want the ear to be, and then again we're just going to mark it with the chalk marker, but we're only going to mark one side, and what we'll do is once we cut that off we'll use that to measure the other side, so we have 2 equal ears. So that's us cut the first ear. So all you see me doing here is basically using that as a template on the other side, just to make sure that we have ears the same size. So just put it on, mark it, and then cut it, and you should have 2 ears that are pretty much identical. So after we've cut what we needed, you might have noticed as well I've just put chalk marks on them all, just wrote T for tail and E for ears on them so I don't get them mixed up. Just put a sanding disc onto the grinder, and now it's just a case of cleaning all the bits up so that they're nice and smooth for when we go to weld them together. So now we move on to the first part of the welding, and the first thing we're going to weld together is those two parts of the horseshoe that we cut in half that we're going to make into a tail. Now, because it's arc welding, obviously you have a lot of slag on the welds, so after every weld it's just a case of cleaning it off with a wire brush and a little hammer if you've got one as well. So the second weld I'm doing here is the face, it's the eyes and the nose. I have used two circular washers and a big square washer, but you can basically use anything that you've got that will fit. And then I've also stuck a nut on as well just to make the nose stick out a bit more. But basically anything that's big enough so that you can then fit it to the horseshoes should work. So the next weld I'm doing here is I'm attaching the ears to the head, and I've basically welded them to the back of the head so that they come out to the side, as you'll see shortly. I also, not in the video, I did put an extra weld across the top just to keep it in place, as I just felt that the welds weren't the greatest because I was only using a thin rod. But yeah, so there's plenty of ways you can attach it. It's probably one of the simpler parts. The next weld we're on to now is we're welding the face that we made out of the washers, and we're just welding that to the horseshoe that we're using as a head, and this will give us the basis of the dog. So next up we're attaching the legs to the head, and after that we will move on to the body. And for the body I've used a bit of box section which I had a scrap lying over from when I made my stool, but you could use horseshoes if you cut them, or anything else that you happen to have lying around. That's not a problem. That's the joys of this kind of welding. You can just use bits and bobs that you've got lying around. So the final part of the welding is the tail that we made earlier, and we weld this on, and then the dog is complete. Just needs a little bit of paint and then it'll be ready to go. So after a bit of paint, this is the finished article. So hope you got something from that, and thanks for watching.